Picture a dimly lit estate sale on a quiet Sunday morning. Or maybe it is that forgotten, cobweb-draped corner of a damp, dusty garage your uncle hasn't bothered to clean out since 1993. You are walking past boxes of old National Geographic magazines, rusted garden tools, and discarded Christmas decorations. And sitting right there, completely ignored on a sagging wood-paneled folding table, is a heavy, tarnished silver box. It looks imposing. It looks like a piece of vintage medical equipment, or perhaps a section of a Cold War submarine's control panel that somehow found its way to the suburbs. Most people walk right past it without a second glance. They see a heavy piece of old junk. They see an oversized paperweight taking up too much space. But there is a hidden history here, a profound industrial secret buried under a quarter-inch of garage dust. We are opening the definitive dossier on a machine that absolutely defied the laws of consumer electronics. Back in the late 1970s, you could walk into a local hi-fi shop, hand over a few $100s, and take this exact piece of equipment home. It was a household item, an accessible luxury designed for the everyday working person who simply wanted good sound in their living room. Today, that exact same box, the Marantz 2285B receiver, is quietly trading hands among a network of elite, obsessive audio collectors for up to $4,000. It is a financial and cultural anomaly. How exactly does a mass-produced heavy metal radio transform into a highly coveted luxury artifact? And the answer is a fascinating masterclass in unapologetic, obsessive engineering that the modern tech world has completely forgotten. To understand this transformation, we have to rewind the tape to the late 1970s. If you weren't around then, you have to understand that this era was the absolute peak. The bloody, uncompromising trenches of what audio historians now refer to as the monster receiver wars. Every major electronics manufacturer on the planet was locked in a brutal, highly public arms race. Pioneer, Sansui, Kenwood, Yamaha, they were not just building home stereos. They were building civilian war engineering. The goal was to outpower, outspec, and outshine the competition at any cost. And right in the middle of this beautiful chaos stood Marantz. When the 2285B was released, it wasn't just put on shelves. It was deployed as a statement of dominance. This existed during a very brief, beautiful historical window before the toxic concept of planned obsolescence infected the global electronics industry. The engineers in Japan and America weren't sitting in boardrooms figuring out how to make the unit conveniently fail in 3 years, so you would be forced to buy the next model. They were thinking about how to make it survive a direct hit from a meteor. Buying a stereo back then was a major life event, second only to buying a car or a house. You expected it to last a lifetime. Just look at the stark aesthetic contrast of that specific era. On one side of the audio world, you had the delicate, finicky audiophile separates, preamps and power amplifiers that required a degree in electrical engineering to wire up correctly, sitting on specialized vibration isolation pads like fragile glass sculptures. And then, you had this cold, heavy, aluminum-faced monolith. The Marantz was designed to be the undisputed centerpiece of a living room. It combined sheer brute force with an elegant, glowing blue display that felt far more like an illuminated instrument panel on an Apollo spacecraft than a simple AM/FM radio. You didn't just casually turn it on, you initiated a launch sequence. The sheer physical weight of the thing, nearly 40 pounds of thick steel, solid copper, and tempered glass, told you exactly what you were dealing with before you even plugged it into the wall. It was a physical manifestation of bold American design language, I executed with terrifying Japanese manufacturing precision. But what actually makes this specific machine so legendary? What is the engineering secret hiding behind that thick, brushed aluminum faceplate that makes people willing to drop $4,000 on it today? It fundamentally comes down to tactile superiority. We currently live in an era of dead glass screens, capacitive touch sensors, and artificial haptic feedback that merely tricks your brain into thinking you pushed a button. The Marantz 2285B offered a profound physical connection between human and machine that we have completely lost in the 21st century. The absolute crown jewel of this tactile experience is the iconic Gyro Touch tuning wheel. Instead of a standard cheap plastic knob that you twist, Marantz engineers designed and mounted a heavy, horizontally oriented metal flywheel that protruded just slightly through the front panel. Spinning it is an experience that borders on the religious for audio nerds. It is heavily weighted and completely frictionless, gliding across the radio dial as if it were classified aerospace hardware suspended in a zero-gravity vacuum. You give it a firm flick with your thumb, and the glowing red indicator needle sails smoothly across the beautifully illuminated blue vellum dial, coasting with a mechanical momentum that feels incredibly satisfying. It is a masterpiece of kinetic design. But the obsessive over-engineering certainly didn't stop at the surface. Inside that heavily ventilated chassis is a power supply that is frankly ridiculous for a consumer product. We are talking about massive dual-core filter capacitors the size of soup cans, and a custom-wound power transformer that looks like it could comfortably jumpstart a commercial airliner. Marantz rated this specific receiver at a modest 85 watts per channel. But anyone who knows vintage audio knows that 1970s Marantz watts are absolutely not the same as modern, highly inflated digital watts. They severely underrated the power output on paper to ensure it always exceeded expectations. In reality, this machine was easily delivering well over 100 watts of continuous bone-rattling power, driven by discrete internal components that were painstakingly hand-soldered to thick, durable circuit boards. The underlying engineering philosophy was remarkably simple. Build the machine to handle twice the electrical and physical stress it will ever actually see in a normal home environment. This obsessive, uncompromising overbuilding resulted in a very specific cultural legacy. The Marantz 2285B didn't just play music. It possessed a distinct sonic signature that modern audiophiles are still desperately chasing today. It is famously described in the community as warm, fat, and incredibly three-dimensional. When you run a high-quality record player through the dedicated phono stage of a 2285B, the sound doesn't just push out of the speakers. It seems to materialize in the empty air of the room. The bass response is thick, authoritative, and physically gripping, but the mid-range has this buttery, almost tube-like quality that makes human vocals and acoustic guitars sound incredibly lifelike and present. Modern digital amplifiers, for all their clinical precision, our room correction algorithms and zero distortion metrics often end up sounding completely sterile. They sound like complex math equations being solved in real time. The Marantz sounds like actual music, and the most impressive part is that it delivered this pristine, three-dimensional audio under the most punishing conditions imaginable. Let's be brutally honest about how these massive receivers were actually used back in the day. They were not sitting in climate-controlled, acoustically treated listening rooms being fed pristine classical music. They were the beating heart of massive, sweaty, smoke-filled house parties. They were shoved into poorly ventilated wooden bookshelves, stacked with heavy televisions or tape decks directly on top of them, blocking their heat sinks. They were pushed to the absolute limit of their volume dials, not clipping the signal for hours on end while blasting Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd. The intense physical vibrations from the speakers alone would easily shatter the delicate, microscopic solder joints of a modern home theater receiver. But the Marantz just kept going, completely unfazed. It was essentially over-engineered to survive decades of severe domestic abuse. You could spill a drink on it, subject it to massive temperature swings, let dust coat its internals, and it would still lock onto an FM stereo signal with terrifying, unwavering precision. It became a true working-class hero, a reliable, beautiful, indestructible tank that anchored the sonic life of a family for generations. But every hero's journey requires a dramatic fall from grace. And the rapid decline of the monster receiver is a fascinating study in status, our shifting perceptions, and the strange, often illogical psychology of the audio world. As the neon-soaked 1980s bled into the 1990s, the consumer landscape shifted dramatically. The elite audiophile community, always desperate to separate themselves from the uneducated masses and justify their massive budgets, decided that the all-in-one receiver was suddenly an unacceptable compromise. They turned their backs on the heavy silver giants that built the industry. purists began inventing technical boogeymen to justify their newfound snobbery. They pointed to invisible, mostly theoretical flaws, citing things like inevitable signal crosstalk. The argument was that because the massive power amplifier, the highly sensitive preamplifier, and the radio tuner all shared the exact same metal chassis and drew from the same power supply, the electrical signals would magically contaminate each other and ruin the soundstage. It completely didn't matter that Marantz engineers had heavily shielded the internal components in separate metal cages to prevent exactly that. The mere idea of an all-in-one unit became deeply taboo in high-end circles. The 2285B was snobbishly dismissed as mid-fi audio, a heavy toy for someone who simply didn't know any better. At the exact same time, the broader electronics industry was pivoting hard towards ruthless cost-cutting and the shiny new digital promise of the compact disc. The beautiful, glowing, meticulously machined aluminum faces were rapidly replaced by towering stacks of sterile, lightweight black plastic. Cheap and squishy rubber buttons replaced heavy, satisfying toggle switches. Flimsy digital displays replaced the gorgeous, warm glow of the blue vellum dials. The tactile soul of audio was systematically and deliberately stripped away just to save a few pennies on the global assembly line. And what exactly happened to the legendary Marantz receivers during this dark period? They were hauled off, banished from the living room. You could easily find them sitting on the dirty floor of dusty thrift stores with a $10 price tag lazily taped to the front glass. They were dumped into local pawn shops, abandoned in damp, moldy basements, and tragically tossed into municipal landfills by the thousands. The undisputed heavyweight king of the living room had officially become a forgotten, unwanted relic of a bygone analog era. And they stayed in the dark for a very long time. But time has a funny, inevitable way of exposing the ultimate truth about quality. Fast forward to the modern era. We are currently drowning in a vast, depressing sea of disposable technology. Modern smart speakers, Bluetooth tubes, and Wi-Fi digital amplifiers are entirely unrepairable black boxes. When a tiny microscopic chip fails after just 2 years of use, you don't take it to a repair shop. You throw the entire unit in the trash and begrudgingly buy a new one. It is a depressing, endless, incredibly wasteful cycle of planned obsolescence. And in the face of this sterile, disposable reality, a new generation of listeners suddenly woke up. They looked at their seamless plastic soundbars. They interacted with their voice-controlled digital assistants, and they felt absolutely nothing. No connection, no soul. They started intensely craving the tactile weight of analog gear. They wanted the heavy switches. They wanted the warm glow of incandescent bulbs. They desperately wanted the gyro-touch tuning wheel. And so began the massive, relentless, and highly lucrative gentrification of vintage audio. The Marantz 2285B was slowly pulled from the shadows of garages and basements, and its ultimate redemption is nothing short of spectacular. Today, there is an intense, almost obsessive restoration culture surrounding these specific units. Modern audio purists are tracking down these neglected, dust-covered machines and spending thousands of dollars to bring them not just back to life, but beyond their original glory. Master technicians, whose wait lists are often years long, painstakingly disassemble them down to the bare metal chassis. They spend hours replacing dozens of 40-year-old capacitors with modern, high-end audio-grade components. They meticulously clean every single switch and potentiometer. They upgrade the fragile, heat-producing incandescent bulbs to custom-made, warm white LEDs that perfectly mimic the original glow without burning the delicate vellum paper. They polish the massive aluminum faceplates until they look like liquid mirrors. They are essentially rebuilding these machines to perform significantly better than they did the day they left the Japanese factory in the 1970s. This intense, highly specialized labor of love has completely inverted the audio market. The former working-class hero has been magically transformed into an ultra-high-end luxury item. A fully restored, mint-condition 2285B doesn't just sell quickly, it commands staggering prices of up to $4,000 on the open market. It is an absolutely mind-boggling return on investment for a piece of mass-produced consumer electronics that was once thrown in the garbage. The delicious, undeniable irony of this entire situation is hard to ignore. The very machine that the audiophile elite once openly mocked and discarded as a compromised mid-fi toy has completely outlived its harshest critics. It has vastly outlived the sterile, lightweight black plastic towers that temporarily replaced it in the 1980s. It has outlived the early digital amplifiers that were aggressively marketed to render it completely obsolete. The Marantz 2285B has returned not just as a functional piece of audio equipment, but as a $4,000 status symbol. It stands today as a heavy, glowing, indestructible monument to a time when things were built with an absolute, stubborn refusal to compromise on quality. It definitively proves that uncompromising, unapologetic engineering is completely timeless. When you walk up to that machine, spin that perfectly weighted tuning wheel, and watch the needle glide across the illuminated blue dial, you aren't just listening to music. You are physically interacting with a piece of industrial history that simply refused to die. And the most fascinating part? This is just one single dossier in the vast history of consumer technology. There are other machines out there right now hiding in plain sight, and quietly waiting to be rediscovered. Forgotten artifacts of brilliant engineering that hold secrets the modern tech industry desperately wants you to forget. The archive of forgotten audio is vast, and the next $4,000 piece of the puzzle might just be sitting in your own attic right now, hidden beneath a layer of dust, waiting for you to turn it on.